In this video, it is my intention to demonstrate a little bit more in the early part of Genesis how it is a human life template, but also to show how, like in chapter 3, is where Adam and Eve, first sin happens and they're issued the punishment. When we get to chapter 12, we're going to find out that's where God puts Abram and Sarai into a land of famine and then disappears. There's something that is going to be in common between those two. Those are the same stage on a template. The exact same stage. What I'm going to do is show in this video how those are repeating motifs. Chapter 3, chapter 12. When we interpret them, they're going to show us that they mean the same thing. My name is Dan Paulson. Welcome to the video. Now, this is weird. I'm not a Christian. What I'm doing is I'm looking at the Bible and understanding that there's something nested in there. It's written in a style that is replicated elsewhere throughout mythology, through Greek myth. The difference is this is a religious genre. Instead of saying Zeus and the other gods, you would say God and the sons of God. You know, you're kind of hiding it. No, we're not doing it that way. This one's real. Those ones are fake. All right. Well, they're all made on the same template with a different style. And what I want to do first is show you something in Genesis. This is going to be kind of technical, so you have to be kind of into finding out what the Bible really is. This is not typically for the theist nor the atheist that, maybe not atheist is a good term, the anti-theist, the ones that are, I hate the Bible, you're using that, you're stupid, all of that. Okay, both of those groups, you have to find yourself away from them. You've got to get away from those two sides. There's something in here that you have to be mentally objective for. It's an inward path that is like something that the Buddha or Lao Tzu would teach, but it is in a completely different style for a different purpose. Let's get into it. I'm going to open up Genesis here and talk about a couple of things from chapter 1 to chapter 6 first. This is very short. All right, what I've got here up on the screen is Genesis, the King James Version, and what I've done is I've just copied and pasted over here from my fixed copy, just chapters 1 through 6. And the reason is this. I've got something blacked out. I'm going to talk through this. There's chapter 6 right there. This is where the flood needs to happen. So we go from creation 1, the 7-day creation. The chapter 2, we get into the second creation story where it talks about the 5 rivers and you end up being created, you and the woman, and you end up naked in the Garden of Eden, being told not to consume of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And then that right there, I want to stop right there and talk about something. Those right there are the creation story is the creation of each human. This represents, when you read it, it's like, well, that's the creation of the world. No, it's not. It's the creation of your experience in the world. You are the one that emerges from God. Your consciousness is Adam. That's why it's there to begin with. God is this higher awareness that we're going to work with, connecting with later. We're living through this to begin with. It's just pure awareness. Watch a child giggle and cry or whatever, how easily they are influenced. You've got pure awareness right there that can be managed from external sources. You can manipulate that pure awareness. We all come from that place right there, and we start out conscious, but that consciousness means that we're not self-aware. This is the time in my life where I have circumcision and things like that. I'm sure I cried and it hurt and it was painful, but I have no memory of it, no recollection of it whatsoever. So I don't believe it hurts me in any adverse way or has left any sort of an impact or anything, because it's not a part of my memory. If you can look back on your own life and realize, okay, there's a point in time where I am a child and I'm not self-aware yet. I'm just existing. That's Adam before Eve comes along. What happens, though, is Adam gets to name things. And in naming things, this means, okay, in other teachings, naming is the origin of all particular things. That means now that I have learned something, that is the beginning of it as far as I'm concerned. It's not the beginning of it in the world. It's the beginning of it in my experience, in my judged experience. So that's what's happening here. So as Adam is naming all of these things to begin with, what are we doing? We're learning A, B, C, D, E, F, G, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's yellow. That's a banana. I like it. Can I have one? We're learning those things and we're developing memories. And as we do, each day we get up closer and closer to remembering, I know what happened yesterday. I remember something here. I want this. I desire that. We're beginning to have inner qualities now that are a resultant of time going by and us learning things. we now have an inner self, and that is the Eve part right there. So what we have established in the story, we come from a higher awareness. That's God. We become conscious self, Adam. The inner self, Eve, is there. And what happens at the end of this, we're told to leave our past behind, to leave our mother and father, and go off on your own and live in the garden in this place of peace. So this is the point in time where we're in our early days of life. We're leaving our source, where we come from, behind, and we're going off and we're going to begin judging life. Now, that doesn't mean necessarily leaving home. That could mean that you're leaving from a happy place to a sad place. This could be happening as a child in the home, that you're going from one place to another. I might have reason as a child to judge the quality of life and get hurt over that. Getting beaten, getting molested, getting abused, seeing horrible things happen. There's reasons for us to start losing that happiness. Naked, unashamed, both of them together in the Garden of Eden is the point in time in life where presumably you're a child, self-aware, have not yet judged life. Everything is fine. Got the whole world ahead of me. I'm full of love. I got a skip in my heart. Everything is wonderful. I'm going to head off. I have not learned yet that it's going to suck. That's naked, unashamed, in the garden, have not yet sinned. All right, let's go back and read this very quickly. First of all, we've got the first 7 days of creation. This story is different than the second creation story. Different authors, different style. Even in the first one, it's reference God. God is repeated. It's either 20 or 25 times exactly. We get down into... Actually, that goes all the way down. You see it, that goes all the way down to verse 3 in chapter 2, and God blessed. The Lord God starts over in number 4. There's actually 7-day creation. It's overlapped here for a very specific reason. It looks like an error, but it's meant for us to put a 7 and a 3 together. I'll get to that. This is going to be the first part of the code. This is the first clue that we have. Langton, I won't cover all that. This is put in for us to find. Okay, so there's a creation story there of how everything comes out. And look, it's a 7-day creation. We go from Babylonians, the 7 tablets of creation. What we basically have here are if you were to look at something like, what I'm going to do is say it like this. Okay, the truth of it is that there is nothing supernatural. And if you went to something like the Kabbalion, and this is just one example, there's something called the seven laws of Hermeticism, or the 7, what do they call them here? The 7 Hermetic principles, that's it. All right, what do we have? There's 7 of them. The principle of mentalism. That means this is a mental process where, what does Buddha say? All that we are is the result of what we have thought. This is going to be nothing mystical. It's going to be trying to sound mystical, but it's teaching us in cryptic verbiage the same thing. We've got the principle of correspondence, the principle of vibration, the principle of polarity, rhythm, cause and effect, principle of gender. We're going to have that show up in the 7 days of creation in the Bible, but it's not in language like that. Cause and effect, day 3. The trees grow with seeds that have trees within them that grow, that produce more of the same kind. That's cause and effect, cryptically held in verbiage, knowing that, this is my garden. This is analogous verbiage. What emerges from me that has been planted in here is going to reemerge and continue to repeat itself cyclically, good or bad, whatever it is. That's how life's going to work. Principle of mentalism, the gender, vibration, things continue to cycle, all of that. So if you wanted to understand 1 through 7, it's going to be something like that, okay? So it's pretty tricky. Then we get into the next one. That was a different story at a different time. And what we have in that one, let's go look at it here. In this case, it starts out, these are the generations. When it gets down here, and then the Lord made everything, it all comes out. The river, Eden is there. That pure place is there to begin with. And then down here is where it says, where does it have the Lord God? All right, here on verse 7 is where it says, the Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and the man was a living soul. So this is each one of us as an infant. Right there. All of us are a living soul at that point. And there's a garden eastward in Eden. That's where he put him. We had formed. That's our infant, pure place to be. We're just pure children at this point. Out of the ground, the the Lord God to grow everything. So all of the things that are going to experience in life, but what we have here is the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil is being put there. So all things are there to grow. Remember, this is analogous. If we're going to eat something, that does not mean we're going to consume it through our mouth. That means we're going to consume it in our mind. The tree of life, that's going to be a mental consumption. And the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, that's going to be a mental consumption. All right, then it goes on, the river's there, and God took the man and put him into the Garden of Eden to dress it and to keep it. So here we are as little children playing in a sandbox, playing with our dolls, something, presumably. I hope everybody had that kind of a childhood where you had an infancy where you can remember a happiness. And the Lord God commanded the man, saying, of every tree of the garden you may freely eat. So go ahead and consume all of life. But of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, don't go learn what life is like. For in the day that you eat of that, you shall surely die. Die is not physical death, it's spiritual death. I'm going to go from happy-go-lucky to, I hurt. I just died spiritually to life. You know what? These analogs can be a difficult comparison. I swear they're repeating things in just different verbiage. So this entire idea that you do not consume of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil is taught by Jesus when he says, judge not, lest for the judgment with you judge others will be judged likewise to you. Same sort of thing, which in all cases means eating of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil means learning and making a decision about something that now I'm going to experience my life through that. Judging something from Jesus, I've now judged this experience, and now I'm going to live through that. For the measure in which I've judged it, it's going to happen to me. It's not a physical thing. It's because I might have been a victim. I got molested, and I hate it, and I don't want anybody to know, and I hold it inside of me. But things keep happening in life that piss me off and trigger me, and it gets worse every time, and that's what happens. Because we're holding on to something. And that's the cycles of things in life. That's the seed that's planted in the garden that emerges, that grows more trees of itself again. Those are the things we have to garden, to work with. So the verbiage is tricky. You have to understand that it's mental and it means something different. If I'm consuming something in the mind, what is it to be naked? Oh, in the physical world, no. In the spiritual world, yeah. Yeah, that means I don't have anything to hide. I'm free of everything. I've got it all cleared. Work it through. It was there. It's old puzzle, 6,000-year-old verbal puzzle. And the Lord God said, it's not good that man should be alone. I will make him an helpmate. So the woman comes about. I'm going to skip ahead here because this is not part of the story. This is what I just explained, though, where the woman emerges from the rib and brought her to the man, and this is bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh, and she shall be called woman because she was taken out of man. This is everybody's inner self. Everybody's Adam is the consciousness. You have to understand it that way. Everything has to be played out that way. You cannot deviate from that. Otherwise it falls apart. Therefore shall a man leave his father and mother and shall cleave to his wife, and they shall be one flesh. So this is you go off and be your pure self, leave wherever you came from behind. And they were both naked in his man and wife and were not ashamed. That's the point where you are happy, go lucky, kid in the ground. Okay, so now is where chapter 3 happens. Now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field, so the temptation happens. They went ahead and do it. What this represents, I'm going to nutshell this. What this represents is you've now gone off and judged life. I went off and saw somebody hurt somebody, or I went off and got beat somehow. I wasn't tempted to do that, but it happened to me, and now I have something as a result. I have sinned. But what is the sin? The sin is really holding on to something that hurts. So she saw that it's good for food. Was it? It's not really good for food. It's life. But we're going to go off, and this is normal. We're going to go off and live life and judge it. We want to go experience life. We want to grow up, and we want to have relationships, and we want to have friends. We see that it's pleasant to the eyes, and the tree to be desired to make one wise. She took of the fruit thereof and did eat. This is going off and having life experiences, and we're consuming of that. And also with a husband did he eat. Yeah, the conscious and the subconscious are always going to be functioning together. But she's the one that consumes it, right? It's getting stored. Eve is the bundle of memories. She's consuming. What does that mean? You are remembering. And now you're going to suffer both And your conscious and your inner and your outer self is going to. And the eyes of them were both open, and they knew that they were naked, and they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves aprons. Okay, that means we became ashamed now. We're covering up. I don't want anybody to know this. This is hurtful. I don't like it. All right, so that's what's happening here. And then the Lord God's walking, looks for him. Where are you? The story just goes on here. It doesn't have any details we need to. This is just carrying the story along. Who the woman that, yeah, okay, so it was the serpent, she says, and then so he puts enmity between the two of them, between your seed. What is the serpent? The serpent always represents a life experience. That's what that is. The life experience that we are having that we're not paying attention to, that we're just judging. Oh, I don't like that. I don't like that person. Did you see that? All the things like that that we're accumulating instead of going, okay, you know what? I can't be doing that. It makes it a part of me. All right, we're naturally doing that to start with. Many of us. Unto the woman he said, I will greatly multiply your sorrow in your conception. Okay, we got cyclical pain happening right here. And unto Adam, because you have hearkened unto the voice of your wife, you have eaten of the tree, you shall not eat of it. Cursed is the ground for your sake, and sorrow you shall eat of it all the days of your life. So you're going to go off and live life blind. You're just going to go off and live life based on the accumulated memories from Eve. Thorns and thistles shall it bring forth to you, and you shall eat the herb of the field. I skipped something up here. And your desire shall be to your husband. So conception and sorrow you shall bring forth children, and your desire shall be to your husband, and he shall rule over you. Why is that? The consciousness is really the one that has the experience that he goes, I don't like that. That sucks. And guess what? You just put that into Eve. You're creating Eve that way. The consciousness rules over the subconscious. It's your conscious making decision about how to manage things that decides the quality of what Eve is, the inner self, the bundle of memories. What's going to end up being the mote in your eye or the ought against your brother. And the sweat of the face, your face you shall eat bread till you return to the ground. So you're just going to live life blind to it. And Adam called his wife Eve because she was the mother of all living. Okay, now this is important. I want to stop and talk about this. This always plays out in the psyche. It plays out like that always. So Eve, the mother of all things, what we need to understand is there's going to be iterations of us. We might start out pure state, but later on we become this. Later on we learn something and we become something different. So there's iterations of us, and that's what the story is going to be holding as it goes along here. When it gets to Cain and Abel, we're going to become Cain and Abel. When it comes to all of the people, all of them are us. When it gets down to calling Noah, that's the called person who goes, okay, I see my life and I need to go destroy it. I'm going to turn inward. It always works that way. There's a mental hierarchy that everything has to be maintained in. The conscious male, the male in here is always the consciousness, but it could be different times and different slices and different aspects, good parts, bad parts. So it becomes tricky. Remember, they're doing this for a living. We don't do it at all. But the inner self then also iterations of inner self all the time. And God is always the higher awareness. There's something out here. And no matter what, whatever good happens, bad happens, it's based on our judgment. God blesses who blesses and curses who curses. Everything good and bad comes from the same source. All of that. But it's going to be because of the judgments that we hold that dictates that. God says, here's the energy. Use it any way you want. It's unfiltered. It's pure. Use it how you want. We're the ones that go, well, I hate this over here, so I'm going to take that energy you give me and filter it through this. That energy is always going to be there. I will bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you, but it's based on this up here. Okay, let's get back to this. All right, I need to move along. I'm still not quite into the actual life comparison. This chapter 3 is what I'm going to say. Chapter 12 is going to replicate what chapter 3 just taught us. What did chapter 3 in a nutshell just teach us? That we started out, we were in the garden, we're supposed to stay pure. Stay pure, God says. Don't have experiences in life that bring you off course, but we go do it anyway. Life is pleasant. We want to go live it. We're going to put on makeup and we're going to party and we're going to do all the things necessary to be part of the gang. And that's how we start off life. And we're going to collect things as a result. And as a result, we're going to cover ourselves up. We're not going to be that pure self anymore. We're going to have things we want to hide, things that we have shame, things that we have beliefs over that we try to keep away from people. We'll put on a face, oh, everything's fine, when inside we're in turmoil. And then What we have now is that there's going to be cyclical pain. What happens? Something emerges out of you, the offspring. Yeah, the offspring of what you have. So it's not a thistle emerging, but what is this? Pain in childbirth is the same thing as a thistle emerging, something from the garden. This is something coming bad out of you as a result of what has happened. And you're just going to live life kind of unaware, not having the most pure life of all. And because you ate of the... Oh, what happens here? Behold, the man is one of us. We get down here and we're going to see, and the Lord God said, behold, the man has become as one of us. There's about 5 references between chapter 1 and chapter 11 that still has Genesis talking as a partial polytheism, not a monotheism. Gods are still referred to in the plural a number of times. In chapter 12, that stops, but 1 through 11, the old one, that it's still, it's still that way. All right, send them out of the Garden of Eden and place some blocks there so that they can't get flaming board turned every way to keep the way of the tree of life. You can get back to the tree of life at any time, it sounds like. Yeah, that's what it sounds like, to keep the way of the tree of life. It doesn't block it out. It's like it keeps it. You can always get back to there. All right, so what happened then? Adam and Eve bear a son. Got Cain and Abel. I'm going to just glaze over this. What happens is that they divided. This represents the division of us. And Cain slayed Abel, and Cain went out from the presence of the Lord. That's important right here. We went from Adam and Eve, our early self, into now we are learning and becoming older selves. Cain and Abel. I could be good or bad. I'm not that pure kid anymore. Now I'm this or that. And I became the Cain instead, the one that was not connected. And I left the presence of the Lord. That means we're now going to start living through our memories and not through our higher awareness. Now, I'm going to tell you what I did right here. I took out chapter 5 for now. We're going to come back in there. It was added in. It does not belong in the first Genesis. It is a code chunk that is put in there. Chapter 5 would have been right here. Cain left the Lord and went to a new place. Chapter 5 would have typically started right there. And Cain knew his wife, and she conceived and bore Enoch. This is us. It's an iteration of us moving along and built a city. We're building our first life experience and called the name of the city Enoch after the name of his son Enoch. Right here, we've actually done something. We've created a branch. Enoch is going to leave the story and go create a monomyth someplace else. If you were in Greek myth and watching Hercules get off the boat before Jason sailed through the clashing rocks to go on the adventure, that's because you don't send 2 heroes on one adventure. So Enoch departs Genesis in the same way that Hercules departed the Argo during the voyage of the Argo. It creates another story before the calling happens, before the adventure, before the crossing of the threshold. So Hercules was before the clashing rocks, and here we have before the flood. And I got to say, you know what this seems like to me? It looks to me like if I look at Greek myth, I would go, oh, that's cool. They're creating a network of stories. You know, they're going to make one story with a branch off of it. Somebody else can come along and go, oh, okay, I'm going to pick it up from there. And that's exactly what happens. Hercules takes off from the island that he left the Argo. He starts from there, his adventure, the island of the Amazons, where the Argo struggled to leave. Well, it depends on which version you actually read. There's different versions of it. But what happens here on Enoch, then, is the same thing was happening. They were creating a story network in the same fashion for storytelling. But what happened? Boy, that starts looking like it's too Greek, right? Let's get that out of there. Enoch is still referenced in there. It's not a part of the Bible. It's used as part of the Ethiopian Bible, but if you read it, it starts right off and it replicates in higher detail this very thing that we've got going on right here. It's a monomyth with Enoch being the called hero instead of Noah being the called hero. All right, unto Enoch was born. This means just time is going on. And Lamech took unto him 2 wives. The name was Adah, and the name of the other was Zillah. These started to get tricky. You start seeing there's 1 man and 2 wives. But if you were to look, you would see that Adah is a bad part and Zillah is a good part. We're going to have divisions being built in a complex way in the story. But this represents the time where we're were getting more complicated and life is going on. And Adab or Jabal, he was the father of such that dwell in tents and such that have cattle. And his brother's name was Jubal. He was the father of all such as handle the harp and organ. And Zillah, she also bare Tubal-Cain, an instructor of every artificer in brass and iron. And the sister of Tubal-Cain was Naamah. And, okay, so what's happening right here, this is the time in our life when we're learning jobs, we're putting on our makeup and getting our hair moussed and cut and all that kind of stuff, and we're learning our things, and we're playing our stereos. This is really old stuff. You got to modernize it. This is that time in our life we're just living and life is going on. And they create it as a part of the story that it sounds like there's a lineage of something happening, but in all reality, this means to each person, this is the time going by in your life. And Lamech said unto his wives, Adah and Zillah, hear my voice, my wives of Lamech. Hearken unto my speech, for I have slain a man to my wounding and a young man to my hurt. Do you remember that with Moses? That's another monomyth. He's going to slay somebody too. Yeah, that's a common motif. These are the kind of things the person that spots patterns will spot. Hey, I've seen that before. I think everybody sees patterns fairly well, but I mean looking at things like, that the Israelites went through the Red Sea with God's help and then went and spent 40 years in the desert. Jesus went through a baptism and God showed up right at that moment, and then he instantly spent 40 days in the wilderness. Not what's different, but what's the same. Do you see those? There's a point where you're going to a deeper level. Jonah didn't want to do what he had to do. He goes into the whale eats him, and he emerges all, okay, I'm ready, goes about his business. He's 3 days in the belly of the whale. Jesus goes into the tomb 3 days and emerges enlightened, completely ready to go. Not what's different, but what's the same about those. Those are the things that you start seeing that are deeper layers for some reason, because your brain finds it important to know those. It sees them, and it wonders about them. And Adam knew his wife again, and she bore a son and called his name Seth. This is us as life going on saying, I got to change. Oh my God, what the hell? We need to create something new. For God said she had appointed me another seed instead of Abel, whom Cain slew. So you need to recover the good side. And to Seth, to him also there was born a son, and he called his name Enos, and man began to call upon the name of the Lord. Now, if we were to look at this, it would be all of Adam's lineage with all that 900 and X amount of years and 800 and X amount of years and weird stuff. We're going to get back to it. It is important. It is plugged in later. It is code. It is, if you were putting a place in a story in modernity to gather your weapons, this is the room right here. You step in, you gather your weapons, and you leave. But it wasn't part of the original story. It was added in as the religion grew. Originally, it stopped somewhere back up here. And men began to call upon the face of the Lord. Then what happened? We step right into chapter 6. And it came to pass, when men began to multiply in the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of God saw that the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took of them wives, of all which they chose. So we see right there, we have sons of men coming down and taking wives who they chose of the daughters of men. Fair, they were pretty. And the Lord said, My spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he also flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years. 120 is a code, but in the Lord said, My spirit shall not always strive with man. That means we will not always live with our higher awareness. We're going to live through our memories, for that he is also flesh. Yep, we're going to be living through our conscious physical memories and judgments. But it's minimal in time. There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that. Remember when you were a kid and you screamed and yelled and kicked holes in the drywall? Nope. There weren't giants. Those were the beautiful daughters of men. That's when we were still pure. Later on, we become these things where it's like I'm angry. I do things. I blow up. I sit there later and go, I don't know what took over me. Something happened. We've got those giants. They take over. And God saw that the wickedness of man was great. That those giants have to be destroyed along with men. All right, so what happens is God said, I'm going to destroy everything that happened on the face of the earth, but Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. These are the generations of Noah. So what's happening right here is we're transitioning from This is our life. This is our world that needs to be destroyed. We are this individual that has become corrupt. This is our experience with the world. These qualities are my beliefs. These are my early who I became in the beginning. What a waste. I need to become something different. Now we become Noah. We become the called hero who must go through the flood and start over on the other side. I'm going to stop right there, though. What I did right there is show the entire life cycle. There's the creation. This is how each of us comes about. There's two different ones. One of them tells us about Eden. You start here. There's one river that flows out of there. There's one pure path. From there, there's 4 different directions that head off. These are the ways that we can go in life. East is obviously east of Eden. That's the way you don't want to go. As you go through these stories, every time you're going east, remember, east of Eden, you're going from pure to non-pure when that happens. The others mean something else. You have to just keep analyzing it. All right, what I did, I changed the layout a little bit here. I don't know if that helps. So I've got the, let's see, the one. Actually, this whole part right here can be gone. I wanted to show you where we come from to begin with. But here's where it starts. A man shall leave his father and mother and shall cleave to his wife, and they shall be one flesh. That means leave your source behind, your inner self, and go off and live your own life. And they were both naked in his man and his wife, and not ashamed. Right here, what we have is you're going to live through cause and effect, but you're starting off in a very pure state just before sin. Now, sin, 3, verse 1 through 24 right here is going to be replicated in chapter 12, verse 1 through 20. Let's go see how that works. Right now the Lord said unto Abraham, Get out of your country and from your kindred and from your father's house unto a land that I will show you. What did we just have up here? Therefore a man shall leave his father and his mother and shall cleave unto his wife, and they shall be one flesh. And they were both naked, the man and his wife, and were not ashamed. Right, what I just zipped out up here or deleted out was that God put them in the Garden of Eden. Down here we have God telling Abram to leave the past behind. I'm going to come and make of you a great nation and a great name, and you shall be a great blessing. This is the calling of the Abrahamic tradition, the religion itself. I will bless them that bless you and curse you that curse you, and in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed. This means every one of your memories and belief systems, all of you. And I'll bless them that bless you and curse those that curse you. You're going to be full of good and bad. It doesn't matter. You might not like it. You might say, God, that happened one time. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. Why later does it keep showing up and feeling the same way? Where does that energy come from for it to continue to manifest? Yeah, it comes from somewhere. But it's going to be filtered through your belief, through your perception of the memory. So Abram departed as the Lord had spoken unto him, and Lot went with him. And Abram was 75 years old when he departed out of Haran. Okay, this is a more complex style. It's going to start dividing us up right away. Lot is going to be a part of our inner self. Abram was 75 years old when he departed out of Haran. We're going to find out later that these numbers are going to start adding up to mean something specific, but right now I'll just leave them as they are. Okay, so Abram took his wife Sarai and his brother's son and all their substance that they had gathered, in Haran, and they went forth to go to the land of Canaan, and to the land of Canaan they came. So that's where God sent them, to the land of Canaan, right? And God passed through the land, and Abram passed through the land unto the place of Shechem, unto the plain of Moreh, and the Canaanite was then in the land. So you're moving. The land is always a mental space. Where do you exist? Is it a good land or a bad land? Is it full of enemies? You got all kinds of conflict inside, or is it full of friends? No, I got a peaceful mind. Those are thoughts. Those are things that act out. And the Lord appeared to Abram. The higher awareness said, I will give all of your memories this land. And there he built an altar to the Lord who appeared to him. So this is a place to get back to, and you see it's on verse 7. That's important too. And he moved thence from a mountain on the east of Bethel. On the east. See that? East of Eden, east of Bethel. And pitched his tent, having Bethel on the west and Hai on the east. And there he built an altar to the Lord, and called upon the name of the Lord. So one direction's good, one direction's bad. And Abram journeyed on, going still toward the south. So Abram is heading on. He's not staying there in his land, is he? And it came to pass when he was come unto Egypt that he said to All right, so what's happening as we move along here then is that he journeyed on, still going toward the south, and there was a famine in the land, and Abram went down to Egypt to sojourn there, for the famine was grievous in the land. So wherever Abram was put, or here in Canaan, and he's still traveling along, he's at a place where there's a famine. But what does a famine represent? This is us. Abram and Sarai is us in a pure state. We've been told to leave the past behind, and that this mental experience is going to belong to all of your memories. I will give them all and bless them, and it's going to be good and bad no matter what. And there's a famine in the land, which means I am naked, unashamed in the garden. That means I don't know yet. I haven't judged anything yet. And it came to pass when he came to Egypt that he said to Sarai, his wife, behold, now I know that you are a fair woman to look upon. So in this case, what we have here is the different part of the story. Instead of Eve going off on herself and being corrupted, this story is a different style, of course, but it's showing the inner self is now being readily given up by the consciousness, which is a little more accurate, isn't it? I don't know anything really about this, so just tell them you're my sister. Anyway, so the story goes kind of funny there. It makes him sound pretty weak, doesn't it? He wants them to, he said, tell Sarai, tell him, he goes on to say to Sarai, his wife, behold, I know you're a pretty woman to look upon. And when the Egyptians see you, they're going to say, hey, she's his wife. So they're going to kill me, and they will save you. So tell them that you're my sister, so that it'll go well for my sake, and my soul shall live because of you. And it came to pass that Abram, when they did get to Egypt, the Egyptians saw that she was very fair. And the princes also of Pharaoh saw her, and told Pharaoh the woman was taken into Pharaoh's house. And he entreated Abram well for her sake. He had sheep and oxen and he-asses and men-servants and maidservants and she-asses and camels. And the Lord plagued Pharaoh and his house with great plagues because of Sarai, Abram's wife. So before going on, this is a big chunk. What just happened here? We're moving along, and the story makes it sound like the outer self is just not even paying attention. I'm just going to go live life. And what happens? Instead of the serpent being the representative of evil, it is Pharaoh. However, in this case, Pharaoh's not made out to be the bad guy. Pharaoh's made out to just be life experience, with you coming in and doing it. What happens up here in the end? The Lord plagued Pharaoh and his house with great plagues because of Sarai, Abram's wife. There's our cyclical pain. Instead of pain in childbirth emerging from Eve, we have plagues happening because of Sarai and because of the inner self. We have cyclical pain happening because of the inner self, because of our memories, the way we perceive it. And Pharaoh called Abram and said, what's this you've done to me? Why did you not tell me she was his wife? And he said, you said she's my sister, so I took her for my wife. Now take your wife and all your stuff and go away. And Pharaoh commanded his men concerning him that they sent him away, his wife, and all that he had. So this represents the idea then that in the same way, leave your past behind. Start off in a place of void. Go off and have life experiences while unaware of that. As a result of those experiences, you're going to pick up some things to take along the way. Sheep, oxen, asses, men servants, maidservants, and asses. Those are analogous Some are good, some are bad things. You're just learning life experiences. You're always going to learn good things to have, and you're always going to pick up bad things to have along the way as well. And then as a result, you're going to have cyclical pain. And then you're going to get sent to go on your way. And so Pharaoh commended his men concerning him, and they sent him on his way, his wife, and all that he had. In the same way, Adam is told, yeah, you're just going to go off and live life and not reap full benefit of it. So these are, I don't know if you can see those as common motifs that are held on the template of a human life. The numbering pattern, it gets deeper, so I don't even want to get into it in this case. Well, this video is getting long enough, and I know that unless you're into it, they're going to get dry. People struggle, I think, to follow these. It's just not interesting. If you could, you would see that there's something in there that is not what you think it is. It's not the religion, and it's not, well, nothing. There's something there. There is a pathway there that if you understood what it was, you would realize that these stories are built on the template of a human life, how we come about, and how if we become the called hero, we cross a threshold, turn inward, reconnecting with the higher awareness, and go defeat the enemies within, is basically what it is. It's like self-psychology, honestly. If you think of a psychologist today and they don't give you the answer, do they? Doc, I don't know what my problem is. Well, what do you think? You know, they might look at you and understand that you've got a complex and know exactly what it is, but they don't tell you what it is. They bring it out of you. They continue to question in a way. And there's a reason for that is because your mind has to comprehend the issue. You have to be able to understand it experientially, not just academically. You know, telling somebody that they need to forgive somebody who hurt them. They could go, okay, I get it. We're done now. I'm finished. They leave. They know what they're supposed to do. They don't understand why. So you want to lead them through to the point that they realize, you know what I have to do? I have to forgive somebody. They have to come to that on their own in order to do it. When you're going through guru material, that's exactly what's happening. Master, I hurt. Please tell me what's up. The Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. The name that can be named is not the eternal name. Naming is the origin of all particular things. Caught in desire, you see only the manifestations. Free from desire, you see the mystery. You're supposed to go figure that out when it's like, I asked you what life was about. What did you tell me? Yeah, the Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. That's the way, the pathway I want to take. I need to take this pathway. How come if we talk about it, it's not the eternal one? Isn't it the right thing? Yes, it's the right thing. What am I looking at? Eternal. What does eternal mean? Oh, that means it's mine. It's impacted me. Okay, do you know what to do, or have you done it? The Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. The Tao that is taken is. That means this lesson tells you this is a personal mental path. This is yours. You don't sit and listen to somebody preach to you. You take this path. It's yours. And it goes on from there. You have to think it through. You have to make it yours. So it's complicated that way, but, you know, in modernity, do we need to do that? We've got busy lives. We understand psychology much better. Anyway, okay, well, that's it for this video. That's basically what these are. They're psychology. The stories are psychology, but they're written in a way that people that aren't going to interact with it in in an interactive mental way to affect a personal change may worship the material as factual when you look at it and go, the only way that could have ever happened is if it happened when things happen in such a way that they don't happen anymore today. We just have to take it on faith that magic and things happened back then that don't happen today when you take it literally. But if you take it literally, you're doing a disservice to the teaching. You're carrying it. But you're not understanding it. It's like carrying a package, never opening it up to seeing what the gift is inside. If you're worshiping the material, when there is something in here that is an interactive step, well, series of steps that shows you how you come about from a pure state, how you judge life, how cyclical pain happens as a result, how you move along, how life goes on, how you get to a point where if you're a certain person, you're going to turn inward and go in and destroy your earth and start over again. You're going to understand that you've become a product of your judged memories, and you are the one that wants to resolve them so that it changes your life. So you become a rare person then when you become the called person. But that's what these stories are, even if it's of a religious genre. It's doing the same thing. If you go back and look at the story of Abraham to their son Isaac, if these are iterations of us, what happens? Abram gives up his wife. They get corrupted. He gets things as a result. When time goes by, there's iterations later on, and Abraham himself is once again ready to give up his wife, saying, she's my sister. However, it gets interrupted before the marriage can happen. It gets stopped. Then when they have Isaac, he's ready to give up Rebekah in the same manner. However, it's interrupted even earlier. So you look at this and go, boy, that's some weak men. Why is that happening? Why are these men giving up their wives, or willing to? And there has to be this intervention that happens. What it represents is each one of us, starting off in life, we willingly give up our inner self to corruption. Later on, we heal. That temptation happens, but we stop it before it happens. In the third iteration, the temptation isn't even effective. So the story makes sense in the psyche, but it doesn't make sense as a teaching to worship, as a people to follow with any kind of courage and strength of conviction. That if you don't interpret that, that's kind of strange, isn't it? Yeah, when you go to Sunday school, they don't teach you those parts of the stories, When the flood is over, all the animals go back out and wonder begins. They don't tell you that really what happened is Noah made a vineyard, got drunk off some wine, and was naked, passed out in his tent, and his sons had to come and cover him up. Do you remember that part in Sunday school? How about where they had to destroy Sodom? Sodom got destroyed. I don't remember them telling me the part about the men from the city when the angels came to protect them, and the evil men from the city came and wanted them. Give us the man, we want them. And Lot says, no, take my virgin daughters instead. So he's offering up his virgin daughters to these men who want to, have some sort of sexual encounter with the two angels, the two men that came there. And in its simplest form, what that represents is this. Remember, it plays out in the psyche, and these all represent something. Sodom represents your early belief structure. This is me. This is what I've got going on in life that I've got to change. It's got to be destroyed. Lot is the part of me that's needs to get out of there. That's the part that's not making it. Angels coming in means we know what to do. We need to come in and do some forgiving, some healing, some forgiveness or whatnot. And so that's what's coming in. However, there's this conflict. It's a struggle. It's going to be hard to leave the past. So the men from the city, the evil men from the city, represents the beliefs and the early habits and selves that are coming. And you know what? Let us corrupt your new ideas. We want to go into the angels that have come to help you. We want to corrupt them with different... Yeah, that's it. It's a struggle to leave right there. However, it doesn't happen. He gives up his virgin daughters instead. They don't go for it. Giving up your inner qualities that have not been corrupted to these who... They didn't want to corrupt the virgin daughters. They wanted to corrupt the people who are coming to help them escape. This represents the struggle to leave. If you go to Exodus, what are you going to see? The same motif occurs when Pharaoh says, you can go. Oh, no, you can't. You can go. No, you can't. I'm getting plagues. We got cyclical pain and struggle to leave the past right there. And so that's the element, the struggle to leave the past represented there. The past is coming after you as you try to heal. And ultimately what that means is it's very difficult sometimes to move on from what's hurting us. That's represented here. It's very hard to move on from sometimes. Anyway, yeah, that strange stuff goes on. We end up, they leave. Lot's wife looks back. What does that represent? Don't turn back. What happens turned into a pillar of salt. Here's a part of you that needs to get destroyed, so it gets left behind. However, there needs to be more iterations of you coming along, so what happens? The daughters realize you have no offspring left except for them, so they get you drunk, and then when you're passed out, they get Lot passed out drunk, their father, in the cave. And one night, one of them gets pregnant, and then they tell each other about it. And the next night, the second one, the younger sister, gets pregnant by him. So anybody that gets so drunk you could pass out, you're not going to get anybody pregnant. I swear you're not going to do that. It won't work. That much alcohol is, yeah, it's going to render you unfunctional. So, I mean, the story doesn't work on a couple of levels, but also it's like that's incestual. There's something weird. But if you play it out up here, what you realize is that there's this idea that there needs to be this continual iterations of you. You're going to keep moving on and becoming different people. And that's the only reason it works. We've got somewhere in Genesis, there's a father who has 3 sons, and then later he dies inside of one of his sons. How does that work? How does a father die inside of his son? Well, the only way that can happen is if you're talking about it in terms of these are iterations of us. My earlier self that believed this gave birth to a better offspring who said, you know what, I know better than that. I've learned things. You're wrong, Dad. So the old self dies inside of the new self. But it's all metaphorical. You have to understand it that way. So it becomes very tricky because every bit of it is metaphorical that way. And it all has to do with the mind. So it's something that I think that they were doing as a matter of course. They were doing this daily lifetimes. That when they had time to think about things, this was their media. They didn't do this. They did this. They had the stories memorized and they played them out in their minds. Anyway, okay, that's how it works. I think if this is very boring, it's just the way it is. Yeah, that it would be, if it was thousands of years ago and we were living in a different time, it would probably fascinate the hell out of us to know these and to be able to do this and to make up our own. That's what they're doing. They're replicating stories with you can see repeating motifs. Anyway, okay. See you in the next video.